representatives from the 209 and the 305 will be engaging in hand-to-hand combat on Saturday night, and up for grabs will be a UFC title. However, it will not determine who the best fighter is at welterweight. Instead, we will find out who is the baddest motherfucker in this game. Hello, everyone. My name is Danny Segura, and welcome to MMA Fighting's UFC 244 preview show. Joining me to break down all the action is my very good friend, Mr. Jose Youngs, also from MMAfighting.com. A lot to talk about. Here, man. First of all, we're here in New York City. We've seen the way they unveiled the BMF belt. We saw The Rock coming out and presenting it, right? And being there between the two fighters, Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz, who will be competing for the belt on Saturday night. A lot was made as far as like, how was the UFC going to execute this? Are they going to get this right? Are they going to botch it? In your opinion, you witnessed everything. How would you grade this whole experience so far for the first ever BMF title?
Well, the whole week has been, I mean, we've seen the term BMF pretty much everywhere in New York City. It's on trash cans, on cabs, it's outside Madison Square Garden right now. I wish they would actually say baddest motherfucker in the world rather than just BMF, because if you don't know what a BMF is like, it's just like, what is this title all about? And in terms of the physical title, I wouldn't say it was overwhelmed or underwhelmed by the design or how it was presented. I was pretty much what I expected. I didn't think it would be gold. I thought it would be more maybe chrome or black like it is now. As Dana White said, it's like the Raiders. He said 2 or 3 times. So it's pretty much what I expected. A lot of people were kind of describing things on Twitter like, oh, maybe it'll have skulls and spikes and fire and flames. I'm like, for a company that continues to use Face the Pain, wouldn't put it past them, but the design they used, it was pretty much what I expected, just as BMF in giant letters, as baddest motherfucker. It says 500 for the 500th UFC event. It says UFC 244 on the other side of the belt. So I wasn't underwhelmed. I wasn't disappointed or anything like that. It is exactly what I expected.
Yeah. A lot of people have been saying that this fight, although it's not the most elite fight in terms of, stakes and rankings, a lot of people are saying this is the biggest fight of the year, maybe one of the biggest fights in UFC history. You've gauged kind of what we've seen here in New York. Where would you grade this fight as far as the year and overall in the company?
Well, you and I actually had this conversation off camera. We were just talking amongst ourselves, and we were going through every single pay-per-view, every single title fight. And the only fight that we could really put this side by side with was the Khabib Nurmagomedov Dustin Poirier fight. That had a big fight feel too, because they were in Abu Dhabi. It was Khabib's first fight since the Conor McGregor fight, when they had the big melee outside the octagon that really captured the casual audience. He was a megastar in Russia. Dustin Poirier coming off that possible fight of the year, the title unification bout. That had a big fight feel, but I think this is the biggest fight of the year in terms of casual fans they're really being captivated by Jorge Masvidal doing the rounds on ESPN. He's doing he's flying all over the world promoting this fight. Nate Diaz is Nate Diaz. He went from a non-needle mover to a needle mover. So yes, I do think this is the biggest fight in terms of hype. It might not determine the best fighter, but it definitely turns the baddest motherfucker in the world. And I would 100% say this is the biggest fight of the year of 2019. I
think this bout has checked so many boxes, and that's why this fight is so great. But one of the boxes that it hasn't checked it hasn't been contentious. There hasn't been a whole lot of beef between the two. They respect each other. I think even Conor McGregor tweeted something out there like, that was not a bad motherfucker weigh-in. Yeah. It was fairly chill. They were sizing each other up, but nothing very aggressive. Do you think how much do you think that is needed to sell this fight? The fact that it needs to be a little bit more contentious, because there was not. I mean, we're there. There wasn't a whole lot of pop from the crowd, but in your opinion, how much is that a factor here?
Oh, they don't have to say anything. They wouldn't have to do any media. Neither of them, like Jorge Masvidal showed up because I don't even want to be at this media day. Same thing as Nate Diaz. I mean, we waited like 30 and 35 minutes for those two. They didn't even do a stare down a media day. I don't think it really cares. Yes, for our jobs, it was annoying because we want to talk to them. We want those stare down clips. We want those numbers. But in terms of the magnitude of this fight, they could just train and show highlights of them punching people and yelling into the camera during the fights. That is what sells this fight. What is happening inside the octagon? Like you saw, like the Conor McGregor build up for the Khabib fight and everything. It was like the dolly throwing, the press conferences, all that stuff. There were no actual fight highlights. This time, it's all Nate Diaz submitting and battering people. It's Jorge Masvidal knocking people out and yelling into the microphone. So what sells this fight is the actual fighting, and I can't think of 2 other fighters that best represent that old school mentality of like, we'll fight in front of 5 people or we'll fight in front of 25,000 people. We just want to fight than Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz.
we obviously know like the winner here is obviously going to take the BMF title. It's going to be a huge night for whoever wins and probably also for whoever loses as well. Nonetheless, a big experience for both fighters. But what's really at stake here looking forward? Could you potentially see the winner here challenging for the belt next? It almost feels like it could be a #1 contender bout, but it could be, the golden ticket to fight Mr. Conor McGregor, and we know he's been keeping a close eye on that bout. What do you foresee the future for the winner here?
I think it depends on who wins. If Jorge Masvidal wins and Colby Covington beats Kamaru Usman at UFC 245, that fight has to happen. Jorge Masvidal said he's going to hurt Colby Covington worse than he hurt Ben Askren, and he knocked him out in 5 seconds. Colby Covington said that fight's going to happen inside the octagon because if he fights Jorge Masvidal on the streets, he's going to jail, and he doesn't want that to happen. Nate Diaz wins. It's probably going to set up the Conor McGregor trilogy, but determining Nate's future, he doesn't even know. He goes, man, I don't even know what's happening after this. I thought this fight, I don't even plan for tomorrow. So I think it really determines who wins, how brutal the fight is, because for all we know, this is the baddest motherfucker fight. They could both get 6 months medical suspensions after this. Or Nate Diaz goes, I don't need to fight anymore. I could take a break forever. I could be back in a month. So if Jorge Masvidal wins, I bet he fights Colby if he wins. But then he also told me when I was at his scrum at media day that he will absolutely fight Conor McGregor, because I think his words were, that dude brings in $1 million a fight, so of course I'm going to fight this guy over all these other bums. So I think we really have to see who wins and how, and then that title fight between Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington has to play out before we can really determine what the winner of the BMF title gets next.
Before I ask you your prediction, I mean, this fight is huge. It's honestly bigger. We just witnessed also the UFC 245 press conference.
Yeah.
This fight, it seems a lot bigger than the actual title fight that's being disputed between champ Kamaru Usman and Mr. Colby Covington. What does that say about the division and sort of the state of the UFC and MMA?
It's interesting because the welterweight division for so long was like when Robbie Lawler was the champion, Tyron Woodley was the champion, George St. Pierre was the champion. We had these really exciting fighters that didn't really need to talk. They were just really elite level they were high level martial artists that were gentlemen. Basically, they were gentlemen that could just beat your ass. Now we have Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. May not have the most stylistically fun fight to watch, but they are dominant. Like, there's no question Kamaru Usman just dominated Tyron Woodley, like 50-45 and across the board. And Colby Covington will be the first person to tell you that he set all kinds of striking records against Robbie Lawler, but neither of them finished there. Kamaru Usman did not finish Tyron Woodley. Colby Covington did not finish Robbie Lawler. Those two are the former champions. So in terms of what this shows is that fans really want not characters that are talking a lot. They just want to see a good fight. And Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal is guaranteed fireworks, and we kind of have seen Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington fight where, yes, they're dominant, and yes, I can appreciate what they're doing because it is so high level, but I get why fans don't like to watch it. I don't like that mentality because they're doing what they're doing to win. It's a sport after all, and it's a sport for some people. Jorge Masvidal doesn't agree with that phrase, but it definitely shows that fans want to see. They want to see violence, as Jorge Masvidal said, not what does he call it? Like waist hugging and crotch grabbing. Yeah. So I think that's what it shows for sure.
You just reminded me of a great quote recently from Darren Till. He said, "Don't call our sport a sport." Yeah. Great quote. And he's also fighting on this card. We'll talk about him in just a second. But tell me, Sunday morning, who will be the baddest motherfucker at 170 pounds?
Man, I do not know, and I'm making my decision now because I've been 50-50. I'm gonna say Nate Diaz will win. I think it'll go to a decision. Jorge Masvidal, he's had 5-round fights before against the Benson Hendersons of the world. Didn't win. He knocked out Darren Till, but he also got dropped in like 30 seconds into that fight and laughed when Darren Till dropped him. Didn't dominate Darren Till, and then we saw 5 seconds of a knockout against Ben Askren. There's not a lot of tape on that. It just shows, as Ben Askren said, he has a fantastic flying knee. That's all we learned. Yeah. So I don't think Nate Diaz is going to get caught with a flying knee in 5 seconds. I think the pressure is going to be there. But I say this, that I've made my decision now, and don't listen to me because I'm not that confident that Nate Diaz is going to win either. You just put me on the spot. So I'm going to say Nate, 51-49 in my mind in that fight.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with Mr. 305, the king of cafecito and croquetas, Jorge Masvidal.
You're telling me you're picking the Florida native?
I'm going to pick the Florida native in this one. I have a feeling, but we'll see how it turns out. Either way, I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic fight.
You're picking the Florida native, I'm picking the American, right? Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Completely non-biased journalism, right?
I would have to agree.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go down to the next slot is the co-main event. Kelvin Gastelum will be welcoming Darren Till to the middleweight division. Fantastic bout, right? But it received a lot of criticism, especially from the side of Darren Till. a lot of people were saying he shouldn't be taking this fight. Look, you're coming off big losses. You're moving up a weight class. You don't know how you're gonna look at 185. Do not take on a top 5 guy like Kelvin Gastelum. In your opinion, was this the right call? Did did Darren Till make the right decision on not only moving up but fighting Kelvin Gastelum?
I mean, it's a no. I mean, Darren Till's not going to say no to a guy that just fought for the title. I mean, any fighter is. What fighter is going to be like, no, I don't want to fight a possible #1 contender fight in my first fight in a new division. So for Darren Till, it's not a mistake. It might be maybe a mistake for his camp. That's like, no, we want maybe you're on 2-fight losing streak. You got submitted and then you got knocked out violently. It's a new division. This guy was very close to beating Israel Adesanya. I think if he didn't shoot him for that takedown against the cage, he could have won that fight. I mean, because Izzy was rocked bad, and if he just kept at him and just Andrew Ruiz came in with that combination and rocked him again, Kelvin Gastelum could be fighting, could be gearing up to defend his title. Maybe he fights Robert Whittaker in Melbourne, not Israel Adesanya. So I maybe if there's any fault, maybe it's his team for maybe not pulling the reins back. But even Dana White said he tried to talk Darren Till out of this fight, but Darren Till wanted it. Kelvin Gastelum said he wanted it. So I can't say it's a mistake if both fighters want it and then they got it. And Dana White was like, I don't like this fight, but if you both want it, have at it. So I don't think it was a mistake. I think he should have maybe fought someone a little lower ranked, but Kelvin's a bad dude too. I like this fight as just a martial arts scrap. Like, yeah. Title implications, rankings out the door. I love this fight, but no, I don't think it was a mistake because they both got what they wanted.
Yeah. How devastating would a loss be for Darren Till here? Because, I mean, he is coming up a new weight class, so that kind of hits the reset button a little bit. But we've seen him get knocked out already by Jorge Masvidal, the guy fighting, and the champion as well, the then champion Tyron Woodley. How much would a loss hurt his career? Because he seems to be like a very promising prospect.
Similar to what I said about with Nate and Jorge, I think it really matters how he loses. Like if he's in just a banger of a fight and they're just throwing brick in there and it's another fight of the year contention, he could possibly have one of those fights where yes, he loses, but it still elevates his stock because he took a guy that was maybe 1 round away from a title to the brink. But if he just goes out there and just gets smoked like Kelvin Gastelum did to Michael Bisping, and just with that counter combination, then it would be pretty devastating for another knockout with his head clangs off the canvas. So it would be bad if he loses by knockout again, but if he has another like epic war, I think it would elevate his stock. I want to see how the fight plays out before I can really give an answer to that.
Yeah. And Kelvin Gastelum, he's in a very interesting spot. He had a war with the champion, right? But that fight was also recently. So what could a win really mean here? Could he potentially be next in line? We know that Paulo Costa's out for a bit. What do you make of his situation, and what is there for him to gain in this bout?
I think this is kind of a placeholder bout where he is like he's technically like a top 3 middleweight like that. There's no disputing that. He goes out there and he smokes an unranked newcomer that is a very popular fighter. I don't think it will do much for his rankings, but it could elevate his stock in the eyes of the fans, where Darren Till is extremely popular. I mean, Dana White pegged this guy as a megastar, gave kind of fast-tracked him to a title fight, and then even off that loss, gave him a main event fight in his home country of London. So for Kelvin Gastelum, I really think this is a way to elevate his stock in the eyes of the fans and maybe the UFC. Not so much the rankings, but Paulo Costa being injured adds a whole new wrinkle to this, where if he's not ready to go, Jared Cannonier missed weight on his standby weigh-in. He possibly might have to be in a replacement if Darren Till's visa issues didn't clear up. But this basically keeps Kelvin where he is, but could elevate him in the eyes of the fans.
Well, let's hear it. What's your prediction for this one?
Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, I think I don't know I don't know many people that are really picking Darren Till coming off back-to-back losses. Kelvin Gastelum has looked unbelievable at middleweight, like wins over Jacare Souza, knocks out Michael Bisping, former champion, takes Israel Adesanya, like I said, to the brink of defeat. I wanted to see that fight against Robert Whittaker, but Kelvin is a legitimate middleweight now. He said it took him a while to feel like a middleweight. He feels like it now. Darren Till, you don't know how he looks at middleweight coming off back-to-back losses, stoppage losses. So Kelvin Gastelum, I'll say by second-round finish.
Now, we're going to skip a few fights and go down to a fight that many people thought should have been in the main card. It is the main event of the ESPN 2 prelims. We're talking about, obviously, Mr. Johnny Walker here facing Corey Anderson. Solid light heavyweight bout. A lot of people are pegging this one as a #1 contender, but it seems it's not getting a whole lot of love from the UFC. First of all, why do you think that is? Why isn't this bout a bigger deal than what it is?
Because it's Corey Anderson. I mean, I talked to Corey Anderson at the Dominance MMA Media Day, and that Media Day had Kamaru Usman, Henry Cejudo, Justin Gaethje, Kelvin Gastelum, Cody Garbrandt. And the best interview of the day was Corey Anderson. He was on fire. He was like, the UFC doesn't want me to win. They want to feed me to Johnny Walker so Johnny Walker can fight John Jones. They don't want to give me a title shot. I am just a number to them. I'm not Conor McGregor. I'm not John Jones. I'm not Ronda Rousey. The UFC doesn't care about me, and they're never going to give me a title shot. That is the most fired up Corey Anderson I've ever seen. So he sold me on this fight just by his anger. And then Johnny Walker is doing his thing where he's being goofy. He's kind of playing with the fans, having goofy stare downs. They're cordial. There's no bad blood there. But Corey Anderson just walks out, stone-faced, doesn't even look at Dana White, gets booed at Madison Square Garden, and he's from New York. So it doesn't surprise me that the UFC is not getting behind a Corey Anderson fight after all the greasiness he's been spitting at the promotion the last few weeks.
Certainly, if Corey Anderson wins, he's a deserving contender, but there's questions as to whether or not he would actually get a title shot against John Jones. And I don't know if there's much interest from John Jones as well. But also, there's not much interest from John Jones to Johnny Walker all that much. Yeah. Why do you think that is? Because he is a very exciting fighter. It seems the fans are loving him, not only inside of the cage, because he does crazy stuff inside of the cage, but also outside of the cage. Do you think if he wins, could he potentially be facing John Jones next? Especially by the way he's been finishing fights.
Yeah, if he gets another flash knockout or flying knee or like standing elbow or whatever, I think he'll fight for the title next. John Jones is one of these guys that I remember when Glover Teixeira got signed to the UFC, everyone pegged Glover Teixeira like he's going to beat John Jones. And then during the press conference where his first Alexander Gustafsson fight, there were questions about Glover, and then he fought Glover next because he wanted to silence the questions. He wanted to fight Alexander Gustafsson because Alexander Gustafsson was as tall as him. He wants to put these questions to bed, and a lot of people tab Johnny Walker as a future champion, as a guy who can beat John Jones. So I think that the fan interest and the questions that fans want answered could be enough to sway John Jones into the Johnny Walker fight.
I know we're getting a little ahead here because Corey Anderson is a legit fighter, and he first has to get past them. But if Johnny Walker were to get an impressive finish, would you like to see that next for him challenge John Jones? Because it seems there's no line at light heavyweight, but at the same time, Johnny Walker seems like a guy that's still very much in development, and sometimes, rushing contenders or young contenders is always not the best idea.
Yeah, I don't want another Darren Till situation where he's just like rushed into a title fight and gets smoked, and that kind of derails any momentum or hype he has, because he's winning impressively, but there's not a lot of tape on Johnny Walker. I mean, we don't really know what he can do. He told me, he told a few people actually that he wants a 3-round fight because he wants to show his full arsenal. Yeah, he had the Contender Series fight that went to a decision, but that was not a lot of American fans saw that. In terms of if he'll get it, I don't know, because Dominic Reyes is out there. He's very adamant. He gets the next shot because he's the next in line after Gustafsson and Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos. So it's Reyes or Walker. I don't really care who gets it because I want to see John Jones fight both of these guys. Dominic Reyes probably has more of a resume to warrant a title shot, especially after knocking out Chris Weidman like he did. I got to see how if Johnny Walker wins, because that's not easy. If Johnny Walker wins, I want to see how he wins and what he says, and to determine what happens. Because like you said, there's really no line at light heavyweight.
Yeah. Who you got in that one?
Man. The last time Corey Anderson fought here, he got head kicked into oblivion by Ovince St. Preux. So I'll say Johnny Walker again, but it's not going to be an easy win for him. Corey Anderson is one of those. He makes people look bad. Like, he pulls you into his game plan. But I've seen him get deaded against Jimmy Manuwa. I've seen him get starched against Ovince St. Preux, and those are still fresh in my mind. So I'm going to have to go Johnny Walker. Yeah. He's looked very impressive lately.
There's a ton of good fights on the entire UFC 244 card, so we can literally stand here for 2 more hours and break all those fights down. But it's getting quite cold. I'm losing a little bit of feeling on my right hand. So let's just do this. Give me a couple fights that you're excited for and why.
Really excited for Shane Burgos and Makwan Amirkhani. Makwan Amirkhani doesn't really fight a whole lot. I think he's had like 1 fight a year since like 2016. This is his 2nd fight in 2019. It's his 1st fight in America. It's at MSG. He wears crystals around his neck, and everyone knows how I love fighters that wear crystals. So real excited for that fight. Shane Burgos is coming off that win over Cub Swanson. He had that stellar fight at UFC 220 against Calvin Kattar. So that one's awesome. Gregor Gillespie, Kevin Lee, a lightweight. That's an epic fight. There's a ton of storylines on this card. I think this is really the first time Gregor Gillespie, who's very like mild-mannered, doesn't look at his opponent, doesn't talk his opponent. Kevin Lee is kind of poking at him, like going down, looking at him, and like Kevin Lee went down and looked through his eyes, and Gregor Gillespie just kept going farther and farther down to avoid it. So that was a very interesting dynamic to see Gregor Gillespie kind of have an antagonist, because I'd never realized until the stare down that I've never really seen him agitated until really that moment. So that's a fight I have a big one. And of course, Derek Lewis is on the card. Like this fight card is awesome, man. I love it. There's, like you said, we could go down the whole card and we could talk about every single one.
I just want to quickly highlight Makwan Amirkhani described his experiences in America and New York because this is his first time as Eddie Murphy's coming to America. So that was really funny.
Profiling.
Yeah, and he was also dressed the part, so looking very good. I also want to highlight Jennifer Maia taking on Caitlin Shukagan. Jennifer Maia missed weight by a lot, so that doesn't help Caitlin Shukagan's hopes to possibly get a title shot. But nonetheless, she's taking the fight. A win's a win. Who knows what happens, but it seems like she's the clear number one contender.
She is. She's the number one ranked
exactly
fighter.
Right now. She could have gotten a title shot, before
Liz Carmouche.
Liz Carmouche got the fight. Yes, thank you. So a win here can only help. So we'll see what happens there. You could very well be staring at the next flyweight title challenger. I also want to highlight Hakeem Dawodu.
Hakeem Dawodu, we know how to pronounce his last name.
Yes, Hakeem Dawodu taking on Julio Arce. First of all, I'm a bit split because Julio Arce is Colombian, but at the same time, I was talking to Hakeem Dawodu, and it seems that he's pretty convinced that he's going to break Julio Arce, and 2020 is going to be his breakout year, and I believe them. The man is extremely confident, and the man, everything that he's shown us in the octagon just seems to be, apart to what he's saying.
That's
so
a mean cat. I like that dude a lot.
Mean dude, yeah.
He has like the word mean tattooed across his chest, like a black power
That's
fist
when
here.
you know, yeah.
So I'm like, I saw him at Edmonton. He won by knockout and was mad that he had a scratch under his eye because he let his opponent punch him like 3 times. He goes, that fight sucked. I got punched. And I'm like, you won by knockout. He goes, I'm still angry. And then so this is a big fight for him. I'm very excited to see what the future holds for Hakeem Dawodu.
For sure. A very exciting prospect. Keep an eye on him. He'll be kicking off the entire card, so you better be tuning into UFC 244 early because things will get popping quick. Anything you'd like to say before we go?
This fight card is, again, there's a lot of title fights that have title implications on the card. The main event has a made-up belt that was willed into existence in August. Nate Diaz said, I'm the baddest motherfucker. I'm going to defend my title. And then the UFC trademarked it, and now they're making money off of Nate Diaz again for what he said. He said, that's funny. He didn't really have a reaction to it, but this fight card is awesome. I'm really excited. I do think it's the biggest fight card of the year. It's at Madison Square Garden. Perfect venue for it, and I honestly can't wait for the fight card. Even though, like you said, Hakeem Dawodu fight's the first fight of the night, and I'm excited for that.
Well, that does it for us here at the UFC 244 preview show. But stick around MMAfighting.com and MMA Fighting's YouTube channel because we'll be providing all the goodies all week long. Tons of stuff coming. Don't even leave the channel. Just keep this on replay. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you so much for tuning into this preview show, and goodbye.